So I'm Mark Walker, I'm from AbilityNet, and I'm going to just explain briefly what we're going to do today, but mostly you're going to hear from others. I'm going to very briefly tell you about the awards themselves. There's lots of information on the website, so I won't dwell on that too much. What we're going to spend our time today is two groups of people, really. The judges, we've got a couple of judges here to talk to you about what they look for and the processes that they're involved in. And then a couple of past winners, both to talk about the entry process, but also, what they gain from being part of the awards, and therefore to think about why you might want to join in with the process and enter, and what you could win and the benefits that will come to you. So a couple of brief facts and figures about last year. We had 349 entries. That's the highest that we've had. We switched it all to online for obvious reasons, and that seemed to go really well. It was the 10th year last year. So, we've got a good heritage and background in terms of what we're doing. The shift to online really just opened up the door a little bit, I think, to more entries and more people to participate. We have a crowdfunding process for the finalists, which kicks off once you're announced as a finalist. That raised over 40 grand between, I think, about 10 or 11 people that use the crowdfunding. It's not for everybody, but some found it really valuable. And then when we did the ceremony itself, we had 69,500 reach on Twitter, and over 1,000 people attended. And bear in mind, previously we had about 250 people at the ceremony because of what we did. What we're hoping was this year we really can grow the audience for the ceremony. That's our primary goal, really, because it's online. It's a lot more accessible. It can be recorded and shared afterwards, and so on. So, it's a global event now because of the switch online, and we've got some great sponsors. Which I'll come to in a second. Sorry, I got my slides mixed up. We've got 10 categories this year. These are mainly the same as they have ever been. There's a couple of new ones. There's an Accessibility Award, Tech for Good for Africa Award, a new one which is AI for Good. There's a Community Impact Award. There's a Sustainability Award, a Digital Volunteer Award, Education Award, Arts and Culture Award, Workplace Inclusion Award, and Young Pioneers. I think the two areas where we're looking at sort of a new direction, really, sustainability. We have had lots of entries which relate to that have come under different categories, but clearly that's a big area for concern in terms of social impact, looking at the ways that technology can have a positive impact on sustainability, and AI for Good, simply because we're seeing so much stuff bubbling up within the entries that was primarily about the AI and the way the technology was being implemented, whatever the impact is, really. And then workplace inclusion, we've had diversity categories and workplace categories. That's similar to what we've had before, and that was a new category last year, and I think that's right now, given all of the stuff that's happening around COVID, the real uncertainty about working from home and working in the office, that's where the crossroads are for us, really, is about making sure that people are being included in the workplace in all sorts of ways in terms of diversity and inclusion, and also looking ahead to sort of social change around the workplace and the makeup of the workforce. I mentioned our sponsors. We really do value hugely the range of people that are involved. We've got the big names. We've got Microsoft, Google, Lenovo, Comic Relief, BT, but we've got lots of reach into lots of communities that you may not have come across before. Arts Council England are hugely important for us, that got involved last year with the Arts Award. Do It, Good Things Foundation, iDiversity, WCIT, that's the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, and new this year, Semble, a social networking platform. So what we do with our sponsors and our partners is we try and build networks out into other communities where we know that people will be doing good work, and try and find ways of connecting with them. So our sponsors, some give us funding, some of us give them us support in other ways, but that network that we have there is really valuable for us. You may or may not have seen, we've had 10 years, we've had 10 or 11 winners each year. So we've got an amazing alumni. It's worth mentioning that we've never had a finalist who we wouldn't have given the Winners Award to. So we don't have we're all killer and no filler. So in actual fact, across the years, we've had as many as 400 or 500 entries that we've put into our finalist categories. So we've dug up a huge range of different amazing stories and amazing people. I've picked 6 here just to give you a taste of the types of things that we have seen. So Be My Eyes is an international network of volunteers who help blind and visually impaired people get assistance through their phone. Peak, one quite a long time ago now, probably 7 or 8 years ago. They were doing eye tests in the field in Africa. Open Bionics, producing affordable 3D prosthetics, gone on to huge things now. Wayfinder, a way of developing a platform for information for blind people within physical environments, and particularly to do with travel. So working with a tube network, for example, where you won't get a signal underground. They're trying to provide ways of presenting information and enabling journeys. What 3 Words covered the planet in several million meter squares and gave them a name with 3 unique words in. Whenever you can encounter that, it sounds a bit bonkers. But the emergency services are now integrated that service into in multiple countries as well. It's a huge international operation now. They use the exact location where a postcode, for example, would be much bigger and of no use in the countryside. You can locate somebody very, very precisely using that. And they also, that grew out of some work they were doing in favelas, in places where people don't have an address, to give people an address. So that was the social impact there. Small robot company, amazing sort of innovation really in terms of farming and agriculture, and using robots to create more effective and efficient farming techniques. So a huge range, as you can see. And really the point of this slide is whatever you're doing, if it's doing some good in terms of social community benefit, health, education, we're interested in the outcomes that you're promoting and the impact that you're having. And then the technology, it may be really sexy and new and innovative, and it may be actually, no, that's just something that's been possible for a while. Be My Eyes is a good example. It's a huge network of volunteers that are simply using a smartphone capability and connecting people together in a very practical way. So really huge range, and have a look on the website to see all of our past winners and finalists, and you'll get a sense of that diversity, of which we're really proud of, the diversity that we've got, large and small companies. Any organization, any individual, any sector can enter, and we're really interested in finding the best stories. So how to enter? We make this as simple as possible, but we don't make it so easy. Just put your name in a hat. We want you to tell us what you do. We want you to tell us about the impact you're having. We are interested in the technology, but we're mainly interested in the impact. We're mainly interested in any numbers you can give us, any sense of scale and potential growth and where it could go next. We're always interested in that. The judges will always be looking for things that they think could have, a boost from our input, may actually grow your impact. And so we're interested in what you could be doing in the next phase of your development and how we can enable you to achieve that. It's very easy to enter. You go to techforgoodawards.com, then you can click through to the Tech for Good Awards platform.com. It's absolutely free. It always has been. You can enter now and then amend your entry later, and you can put images and documents and videos, embed those into your entry as well. So I think the main question for most people is not so much how do I enter, but which award shall I go for? And then obviously, how do I win? Bearing in mind today's conversation. So I think let's start with how do you win? Because I think if you've got the right impact and you're looking at the area that you think is the right sort of heading for you, then you really focus in on what you think we want to know in that heading. And the criteria in the entry process will tell you what we're looking for. So if you're looking for AI for good, then it's not so much about the specific category of education or health or community, for example, but you must expect us to be looking for that, because we're not just interested in clever tech, we're interested in the impact it can have. Whereas obviously in something like the Accessibility Award, that's specifically around the ways that technology can help disabled people. Criteria should be fairly clear there. If you think your technology is enabling people with disabilities to live more effective and independent lives, then that's the place to put your entry. Broadly, the categories ask the same questions. Obviously, the answers that you give will be relevant to that particular category. But we've made that as simple as possible because we're interested in your stories. When you hear from the judges, you'll hear about what they're looking for, but we've made this as open and accessible for you as possible. So let's get on to a couple of judges. I don't think we've got the video working for this at the moment, and I don't think John's turned up. He said he was unsure. So can't see him in the list. No. That's the voice of God behind you. That was Catherine, just so you know. So Robin, let's start with you. See if John turns up. So Robin, could you tell us who you are and what you do, and then tell us a little bit about your involvement in the awards over the years?
Yes, so Robin Christopherson. I'm head of digital inclusion at AbilityNet. I'm blind myself. From the accessibility category point of view, that I'm particularly interested to see what comes in each year in that area. I've been chair of judges for a couple of years now, and as far as what you need to think about in entering a winning entry, it's really a broad range, but the sort of top tips from me and other judges have been around the story that you tell. So we're not necessarily looking for cutting edge technology or for real innovation, but if you're doing something, you're approaching a need in a slightly different way. You're thinking about how it's impacting individuals. If it's something that isn't already fully implemented, then it's really important to tell the story. Who's it impacting and in what way. If it's something that's been up and running for a while, then do give us some numbers about who it's impacting and on what scale. That's really important. But even if it's just at the inception stage, we still want to hear from you. But make sure that you really tell us what's different about it. Why is it special, or why is it special in relation to what it's doing? For the people that it's impacting. So yeah, that's really important. Mark's talked about a couple of the entries. Be My Eyes. I'm definitely going to revisit that one briefly. Such a simple idea of just doing an instant video call, crowdsourced by volunteers around the world. And as a blind person, that is an absolute godsend when you haven't got a pair of eyes handy, particularly during lockdown. And they just took it one step further and approached organizations like Google, Microsoft, the RNIB, and they added a section whereby you can have direct connections with those. And if your computer has stopped talking to you, for example, as a blind person, as soon as it stops talking, you haven't a clue what's going on. So to quickly fire that up, and is it the blue screen of death, or is it just doing an update or something? And then they can connect to your computer using TeamViewer, and they're obviously expert in what they can do. And even Clear Blue, who are a pregnancy testing kit company, are in that specialist help section in Be My Eyes, because you don't necessarily want to have a stranger telling you something quite so significant as to whether, what the result of your pregnancy test was. So things like that, really, really important. Wayfinder that Mark mentioned there as well, to be able to get you to the turnstiles in the London Underground as a blind person, or to avoid, the edge of the platform, for example, is hugely important. And technological solutions can really, really change people's lives. But if it's just something as simple as the idea of splitting the world up into squares and an easy way of providing those coordinate references with three simple words. So, what is your idea? Think about how it can be presented in a way that really tells a story. That's key. We want something that stands out because of the connection that we feel it's making to individuals through your story that you're telling in your submission. Also mention what it will mean to you if you were to be successful or a finalist. We certainly have provided a lot of support, not just to winners but to category finalists, etc. And to anyone that wishes to access the network that will be available throughout all of the T4G meetings, online events, etc. going forward. It will really help boost the profile of your project, whatever it might be. Maybe you're looking to get funding or sponsorship, etc. Say what it would mean to you if you were successful, and how it could take you to the next level and what that next level might look like. Those kind of things. We want to know where you are today and where you hope to be tomorrow. And those will really make us think, will make your entry stand out amongst the many dozens that we're going to be looking at.
Thanks, Robin. I think that those are all great insights. I think certainly it's worth mentioning some of the practicalities to understand how we actually do the judging. So shortlisting is generally done by one of our partners that has a particular interest in a particular category. So a good example is the accessibility. Robin would be involved directly in deciding the shortlisting. Some categories have 40 or 50 entries, some have 20, 30. So we have to cut those down to 4. We have 4 finalists in each category. So the judges are involved from the beginning, but they'll be involved in those individual areas that they have their expertise. The next step on is that all the judges choose all the winners. So the judging panel, which is an incredible range of expertise and knowledge, it's worth looking at the list of judges on the website just to see how broad that range is. They're not just technologists, they're not just specialists in a particular industry. They could have all sorts of input, and sadly John's not here now, but John's a good example of that. He's been involved for many years and had lots of different roles across what he's doing, and knows lots about small startup organizations as well as larger projects and programs that he's been involved in. So we want that diversity of our winners to be reflected in our judging panel, and we work hard to make sure that we've got a real spread of knowledge and interest, but we also make them work hard. When you get down to the last 4, bearing in mind, as I said, that we don't put anybody in there just because we only had 3 and we didn't know which one to choose. It's very difficult to get down to that 4 in the first place. What the judges are often discussing at that point is what makes this entry stand out over and above other great entries. So you've got to be good at telling your story, but you've also got to be very clear what it is that you do that makes a big difference. And then Robin's hinted at this. I think that we are very aware now, after 10 years, how much help we can provide to both finalists and winners. So we're looking at where we can have the most impact ourselves, a lot more than we did before. I think if you're very clear about your next big step, we actually ask you a question about that. What are you going to do next? What's your next big step, and how can we enable you to achieve that? I mean, there's 2 sides to that. One is, do you have a clear sense of direction? Are you really clear about where you're going? We want to continue to help you develop, but we want to know that you've got that clarity about what you're doing. And the other is, how can we help? Because there may be particular things. We won't be giving you money directly as a prize, but you may be able to enter the crowdfunding campaigns, for example, and get money that way. But we have got a great network of support, and our judges are the start of that. When you look at who's on the judging panel and who will have seen your entry and what they may be to help you with, that's the thing to think about when you're writing your entry. And they're across a huge range. So just have a quick look and think about, what would I say to that person if I was sat opposite them now about what I'm doing and how they can help me do more. I saw a question just pop up. It's worth mentioning that the entries are open to anybody anywhere in the world. They do need to be submitted in English. And our judge is actually international as well. And we're doing some work around that just to spread that base out. Something we haven't mentioned, which I think is important, is we don't mind, we're not looking to judge you by what stage of development you're at. It could be really, really early stages. You might have just come up with a great idea, given a proof of concept, can really see the potential, got some great evidence about the impact, got some good partnerships in place in terms of the next step you're going to take. That's a great startup story for us. Or you could be at scale up, looking at the next big step for you is, okay, we've got all this stuff and running. We've done some amazing work. We've really embedded this into the work that we're doing. And the next thing for us is to grow. Or it could be, we've had entries from Facebook and Microsoft, for example, of work that they're doing. So you may be a big company working on a big project where you can see the huge impact that you can have. It could be a partnership program with multiple organizations involved. all of that's going to be judged in the same way by our judges, is looking at what it is that you're doing and the impact you're having, and then how you tell that story in terms of those numbers and the evidence that we can see, will be part of how we judge that. So somebody's saying here there will be a recording of this session, and there are some recordings for past sessions if you want them. I'm just picking up on a Q&A that was there. Great, so I'm going to move on. We've got a couple of winners who are always the people we want to talk to the most. Thank you very much for that, Robin. But what you can get from the winners, I think, is particularly if you look at their stories on the internet as well, have a look at who the past winners are and what they've been doing. You get a real sense of, what's in it for you, but also, some of the ways to angle your story and to make sure that you make the best of this opportunity. So I'm pleased to welcome Isabel and Si. Hello, Isabel. I just didn't check whether you're actually on, but I can see you on.
Hi,
how are you doing? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, very good.
Cool. And hello, Si. You're still
Hey,
there?
Mark. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So let's start with you, Isabel. You won last year. Can you tell us about your entry and in a sense, tell us the elevator pitch that you think was the one that caught the judge's eye last year?
Yeah, so Power to Connect is a laptop donation scheme that we set up at the start of COVID. It was kind of, one of those periods where, locally we wanted to do something in Wandsworth, but we had, no idea what we needed to do to support schools and the most vulnerable people within the borough. We knew that people were going to be dealing with food poverty locally, so Battersea Power Station and Wandsworth Council decided to come together and launch Power to Connect, which was the campaign to get old, unused laptops donated, updated into Google Chromebooks, cleaned, and then delivered to schools in line with the deprivation data. We are about to turn 1 next week, which is pretty crazy, because I remember thinking, we'll probably launch this project and maybe it will run for 6-8 weeks and we'll see what we get. We've now delivered over 1,200 laptops, tablets and desktops to 76 Wandsworth schools and 10 community organisations. So, it really was just local people coming together. We're run by volunteers. We have a team of about 25 committed IT, logistics and transport volunteers who make it all happen. And we really applied for the Tech for Good award. Other people kind of suggested that we should apply. And it was just a really good moment for us last summer to reflect, because, really since last April when we launched the project, we hadn't really stopped to kind of take a breath and, to actually kind of put down what we'd achieved, from April to June when we applied. I think it was just one of those moments where it really allowed us to kind of think, okay, we've got a really good model and what we're doing is working. So, applying for the award, I think it gave us a lot of confidence, because we felt very much like a grassroots initiative. We didn't know really, we didn't have that much time to know what else was happening nationally, but it just kind of gave us that moment to gather our thoughts, reflect on what we'd achieved so far, and also think about what we wanted to do, moving forward. And yeah, and here we are about to celebrate our first year anniversary. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, no. Well, congratulations. Obviously, I mean, as you say, I mean, none of us obviously knew exactly what was going to come next. for a small little community program in your head, you're going, hang on a minute, this has been going on a year, and I see you're called the director now as well. So you've got you've got job titles and everything. I'm sure I'm sure that's not what it felt like when you started.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, there was lots of figuring out, how are we going to set up a bank account and, get a board and all of these things that, we've had to do and recruit people. But it's been really, amazing process to be part of the Tech for Good Awards. We've met loads of really amazing people. We've got to learn other work that people have been learning about, and also just really raising the profile of what we were doing, because we are so grassroots based, but through the Tech for Good Award, we have, been able to present, had amazing opportunities to talk about what we're doing, globally. We presented to, a conference in America. So, it's really kind of taken us from being this small group in a community centre opposite Battersea Power Station to being quite well known, which has been great.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. I'll come back in a moment just to ask
Thanks
for your
so
top
much.
tips. But Si, you're in the same boat. You're a startup-y, small organization, but and growing fast. So can you tell us a bit about what it's a couple of years ago now, isn't it? What you were thinking a couple of years ago when you entered and what you were doing then?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, things have definitely changed quite a lot since then. It was yeah, me, myself, and I in the spare bedroom kind of thing. You know, we'd had a lot of projects that we were rolling out, as in we were going out and doing creative learning experiences, etc. So I'm from Digit Music, and we won with our controller, which is a universally designed music interface, and it actually came from an adapted wheelchair controller, and I think that's how we kind of spoke about it when we put the application in. It was an adapted wheelchair controller that allows the people using it to kind of capitalize on the muscle memory and familiarity of a device that they use every day, to then be able to kind of put that to use for creativity and for making music. So we had a few devices at that time. We've got a few more now. Obviously, we've not been able to go out and do any of the creative learning experiences, as everybody's had to be locked away for a while, but the company's grown a lot since, you know, to a large part to do with the Tech for Good Awards as well. You know, in terms of the network, you talked about the network earlier, and that is definitely a huge thing for us. So we've now grown. We've got a team of 5 people. We've got you know, we've got a non-exec board, and we're pushing forwards with taking Control One, which is our device to market, and we're rolling out some universally designed creative learning experiences. So yeah, when you asked me to sort of to come on and talk about this, it was then looking back at kind of where we were, yeah, almost 2 years ago now when we put in the application, and things have definitely jumped on. And yeah, I just can't sort of to say enough really for people. Just definitely get an application in. You know, there are big companies going in, and there are people that are very established. But you know, if it's a good idea, and you really think that it can make some impact, then you're in with a shot, because that's definitely where we were, and it's really helped us grow since.
Great, thank you. Well, I think so for both of you, I guess that as well as start with you, if you were thinking about a couple of top tips that you think made your entry stand out, because you know, you now know more about what's in the network. You know, there's some amazing stories out there, as we know. What do you think it was that you said or did that really jumped out to the judges and thought this is a potential winner?
I think the most important thing is to tell the story, because you know the work that you're doing, or you know the organization that you represent. And I think it's very much about, you know, clearly painting that picture for the judges, and also, you know, being confident. You know, we're not often that great about, you know, saying we're doing this project and it's amazing, but actually, you know, being able to evidence why your project, you know, or the work that you're doing, you know, is having an impact, and, you know, being confident in that, and just telling the story. You know, for us, you know, at Power to Connect, we really wanted to tell that story of these 2 organizations, Battersea Power Station, Wandsworth Council, you know, haven't historically done that much work together, but, you know, came together at the start of COVID. You know, we also wanted to tell the story of our volunteers, and really make the project real for the judges to understand, you know, what does this project look like on a day-to-day basis. And, you know, particularly because of COVID, you know, we were in quite a unique position that, you know, we had, you know, Michelin star chefs who were furloughed coming in to update laptops for us, and, you know, famous, you know, Wandsworth interior designers coming and picking up laptops and taking them to schools. So, you know, really telling those things that, you know, on a day-to-day basis, they're quite blasé, because, you know, they're people you're working with, or, you know, you're doing this day in, day out. But I think really telling the human side of what you're doing, and how the technology that you're working on is impacting people, you know, and their real lives. You know, that's what I care about. You know, how does what we're doing impact real families, you know, on low incomes having a really tough time? And I think just telling that story really, really clearly and really proudly.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, certainly, I certainly, bearing in mind that we saw a lot of entries from stories that related to COVID. There was also the Code for COVID network that won a different category. You know, clearly that emergency situation, that crisis situation that was emerging in front of us, there were lots of different areas of categories that mentioned it. And as you say, I think the primary thing is to sort of look at what the impact is from the beneficiary's point of view. So there are people who are trying to connect their kids into the school online learning system. That's a good example of, we saw several examples of that. That's the thing you're trying to solve. This is the way we're going about it. These are the particular people involved to bring it to life. I think that's what, a couple of points for me is it's unlikely that the particular problem you're solving, that you're the only one solving it. So, you weren't the only person the only community affected by COVID, and you weren't the only people trying to sort of deliver laptops into people's hands, but you had a particularly community-based way of going about it. So that's the bit to highlight, I think. And I think that's important looking in now, is that if you're doing something that you think is a common issue that lots of people are trying to address, what's the particular thing that you're doing that makes this stand out? So, I think from my point of view, I think, it was quite ingenious what you'd come up with around the idea of using the controller, the wheelchair controller. I don't know if you can remember specifically thinking about what you were going to highlight in your entry, but that one, that I remember very clearly. Oh, that's really clever. That muscle memory stuff you mentioned a moment ago, I think is a particular standout for me about, oh yeah, that's a really smart way of making something happen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and for fear of copying Isabel's answer, it really is story based and kind of refining down. You do things day to day, and they end up just becoming something that you do. And it's kind of part of what you offer, but almost the importance of them kind of sort of slips away a little bit. And I think it's about kind of really refining down what is important about what you're offering, and what is the story with that, what's the difference that it's going to make. And it does, speaking to people afterwards, it does seem that kind of, rather than it being a completely new piece of technology, it was a kind of adaptation of existing technology. That seems to be the thing that kind of that definitely helped us get over the finishing line with these awards. So yeah, I guess it's really just looking at what you do, talking about the human side of it, and the actual impact that it can be, that it's going to make, but really focusing in on what are those things that make you different. Essentially what Control One is. It's a MIDI controller. It's not rocket science. There's hundreds of them out there, but I think just the fact that it's using an interface that disabled people use every single day, a lot of the disabled people that we worked with through the Able Orchestra use every single day to explore the world, and kind of just reimagining that so that it can be used for creativity, was the thing that saw us over the line. So yeah, and then the other one as well, which is not something that I did, but it was something I definitely recommend you should do, is get the entry in early as well, because the fact that you can go in and you can change things and you can refine. I actually found out about the awards a little bit later than I would have liked. So at the point of entry, it was I was having to move quite quickly. But I think the fact that you've got a bit of time and you can go in and make changes, I would definitely recommend that as well.
Great, thank you. Well, just one point each from you then. If you were going to pick one thing out that you think that the awards has an impact, something practical that sort of explains to people, what did you get from it? Si, with you, I mean, there's lots of different bits I know that you've done. Is there something specifically you'd say, you know what, because we entered the awards, we did this?
Yeah. I mean, network is the huge one. Like, we've got an ongoing network, but through entering the awards, you invited us to come and play at TechShare Pro at Google's headquarters in London, where we were able to perform for, heads of accessibility at Apple, Google, Microsoft, and all of the other wonderful partner companies that you work with. And that's been great for us, and a real good jump off point for a number of other projects that are kind of ongoing at the moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly, that's a highlight for me as well. Just seeing you do that stuff on that day in that room was just amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing sort of atmosphere and environment.
Yeah.
Isabel, anything in particular that, what's the one thing that you say that's happened in the last year that wouldn't have happened without the Tech for Good Awards?
I would definitely say just the opportunities that we've had in terms of, being able to present at different conferences, the kind of profile, of the project. We were connected with Devices.Now before, but we've presented a number of times alongside them. And I definitely think the awards helped with that. And we also presented, as I said earlier, to this global conference that was hosted over in the States, which I definitely don't think they would have known about our little Wandsworth project if it hadn't have been for the Tech for Good Award. And that was just, amazing to talk about with people, that are doing similar work or looking to set up similar work over in the States, and talking through our model. It was quite a surreal experience. Like today, just kind of talking into a computer, but seeing that there were hundreds of people listening about Power to Connect and talking about the Tech for Good award was just really, really amazing.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations to both of you again. I know, I know that you'll continue to be involved in the network. That's the other thing, is we try to keep that connection over time as well. So please do let us know if there's anything we can do, and please do come along to the networking events and so on that we're obviously going to be running. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
I've got one more slide, and then if you've got any questions, I've seen a few questions. I'm going to answer one or two in case you missed them being answered. So our 5 top tips: focus on a specific project. It's very, very rare. I can't think of an example of where we've actually given an award to an organization that's doing good work without knowing specifically a piece of work that they're doing. It's the piece of work that will engage us and say, right, we made this happen. This is happening, and here's the impact of it. You may have loads of examples of that. The more examples you have, the harder it is to sort of get your head around. We're really looking for simple stories that say this technology is doing this and this is the impact it's having. So keep it simple and concise. We encourage that. We maximize. There's a maximum number of characters you can use when you put your entries in. That helps us because we don't want to read through reams and reams of content, but it really encourages you to refine it. And actually, Sai has mentioned, returning to your entry. My suggestion would be that you don't return to your entry to add things, that you return to your entry to refine and focus and remove things, really, and think about the best bits that you've put there. Think about the bullet points that make the most sense in terms of people looking in. Show it to somebody who doesn't know very much about what you do. Ask them what they think the most impressive parts are. Really simple and concise will stand out. Even if you've got loads of stuff to say, you've got to find that way of boiling it down and saying, this is the main, this is the main reason I think you should look at my story. This is what we can do. You can have lots of other background information on your website and other places, but we want to hear your simple story. Don't be afraid or self-conscious or embarrassed about telling us specifically why you're so good. One of the questions is, why should you win? We know that, as Sai's just mentioned it actually, and it's something, Isabel, you were saying, about it becomes normal for you to think, oh, actually, that's really cool because you see it every day. We want to hear that story. It's the bit that you're sitting back and going, we can do this. We thought of this. We did this. It's really clever. Look what we did with it. Tell us specifically what you're doing is so good. You can enter more than one category. I saw a question about this, but be aware that the questions are different in each category because obviously they relate to the impact that you're having around sustainability, as opposed to AI for Good will ask you about the technologies that you're using, and the impact may be very different. So you can enter more than one category. You have to enter them, but just one rider is that we sometimes find things in one category that we know are going to be really strong in another category. We'll check that out with you, but we do when we're doing the shortlisting, not frequently, but we do every year do a few bits of shuffling around and say, this isn't going to win in this category for whatever reason, but it may be really strong in another category because it's got a particular impact or a particular angle which will be relevant in more than one. So you can enter more than one category, and we do shuffle around even if you don't. But just be aware that the categories actually have different criteria, and so you have to be able to tell that story in terms of the impact you're having. And then it's a lovely thing to do anyway. Go and find out about the previous winners. That's the whole point of the awards, is to shine a light on people who are doing amazing things. So of course we want you to go and find out about the winners. Of course we want those stories to be told about everybody who's been involved as a finalist and a winner over the years. So please do, set a bit of time aside, have a look at what we've done in the past in terms of the types of winners that we've picked out, but also just enjoy the stories of some amazing people from the last 11 years who are all doing inspiring things, probably in the ways that you are, and may just be something that you can pick up and connect with. Everybody involved in the awards that we work with is always open to networking and connecting up and trying to support others. So that number 5 really is getting out there and doing a little bit of research, but also enjoy that, learn from it and share your learning back to the people you can see in the process. The timeline, you've got until the 5th of May to put your entries in. We know that, as Sai's alluded to this, we know that even if you've heard of the entries before now, that you're likely, we get a big bulge somewhere around the 3rd or 4th of May. There'll be a flurry of entries. you might well have been refining it before you get to that point, but you can actually enter now and then go back and keep it up to date, and just add details to it. And as I said, that might help you improve the quality of your entry as well, because it may just be that the more times you look at it, the clearer and clearer your story is. We'll announce the finalists on the 2nd of June. And there will be a networking event for finalists on the 16th of June. That gives me a chance to say that we do as much to support you in your networking as we possibly can as finalists. We'll have 40 of you this year. So we're trying to find connections. All the judges and sponsors are invited to that. We invite others along as well. Really, the point of the networking is, what can we do to help you? What are you trying to achieve? And what can you see that we're doing that you'd like to get some support from? There is judging then takes place the day after. So the judges lurk around and get involved in the networking. Well, I should say lurk, that's not the right word. They're very often up front and they're in there trying to find out, what you're doing and to hear from you. That's the point of them judging. They're interested in what you're doing. So they then come to the judging process the next day. And as I say, all the judges are involved in all the decisions. Somebody's asked a couple of questions here about the judges can see, when they get to the judging, they see all 40 entries in all the categories. Only the people doing the shortlisting see the entries that don't reach the finalists. So, for example, if Robin is working on the accessibility category, he'll see everybody's entered that category, but he'll be the judges on the shortlisting, the only ones who see that category. Bearing in mind there are 360 entries. There are maybe 30 or 40 accessibility entries. He'll see those. No one else can see them. And we don't publish that afterwards. We don't publish a list of the ones who didn't make it or anything like that. Another question about, is there consideration for people funding their projects out of their own pockets versus large company with funding backing? No, there isn't, but that might be the inspirational bit that you turn your story into. So we don't favor either of those necessarily, and that diversity that we have is not saying that the diversity comes only by favoring startups versus established companies, but the way the story is told and the way that you've engaged with your community and connected into the beneficiaries who are learning from what people are asking for and then growing your ideas, however that's being resourced, that's the type of story that we're looking for. And it may be that there's no what you're looking for now is to grow and develop, and that you need partnerships, and that's what we want to hear from. If there's a limit on what you can do with the way you're working at the moment, then we'll be thinking about how we can help you grow to the next stage. But we want to hear that from you. What does the next stage look like? If it is currently in this sort of model, then what could the next stage look like, and how can we get you to that next stage of development? So that may be an area where you might want to sort of highlight in your entry what your next big step is. We'll have an awards ceremony on the 7th of July, and then back to the networking. We'll have a winners dinner on the 14th of July. So that would probably, of all the things that switched online last year, that was the weirdest thing on Zoom. We all got sent dinner and had to cook it while we were chatting to one another, and then all the judges and the finalists and all the judges and the winners and the sponsors got together. But that, again, what that gives us chance to do is to meet the winners again, to hear more from them, for them to talk in a little bit more detail about what they do, to connect up with all the different sort of networks that we're part of. And we do that in the finalist events, but get to the winners, there's 10 winners at that point. It's obviously a little bit more focused. And that was a couple of hours worth of networking that went on over Zoom. And I know that there were several relationships that sort of established there, that people saying, oh, let's talk about that. And those conversations continue. A load of the details I've given you are available on our website. Lots of questions that you've asked are probably answered there. The big one was, how do I know which category to enter? How do I find out more about the entries? Just click through onto the pages. You'll see the criteria are clear in terms of the entry process, what we're looking for. If what we're looking for isn't what you're doing, then we're not going to be changing that. So don't enter something because you think it might sneak in. That's probably a top tip. Don't waste your time on pretending that you're helping with education when what you're really doing is helping with accessibility, for example, because the questions will catch you out. They won't be able to produce the evidence and show us that you have that sort of winning entry. but they should be clear to you. And if they're not, we're always available to help. We're really happy to look at anything that you are stuck on. There's lots of contact points within the website where you can say, get in touch, just email us, and we'll do anything we can to help. So I think I've answered all your questions as we've gone along. I don't know if there's any final things that you'd like to know. This is your last few moments of this session. So if there's anything that you can think of that hasn't been asked, please ask that now. Can we have Twitter handles to get connected for queries? Yes, you can. @Tech4Good Awards is our Twitter handle. So that's on the website. Oh, change the page there. That's on the website as well. And certainly on Twitter, there's lots of other people who are connected into the process as well. So it's worth having a look at the sponsors and others. You might find something in there that you want to, follow up on. The entries on the website should have things like social media connections where they're known or available. So you can follow up on past winners, for example. But if not, again, just let us know. And if we can connect you up with somebody, we'll do our best to find a connection that's relevant for you. Okay, well, a huge thank you to Robin, Isabel and Si for joining us today. It turns out John couldn't come here because of a family emergency. So a big thank you to John anyway, because he one of our judges, they're doing all of this because they're interested in what we're doing. They're doing it voluntarily. And so, I think you get that sense now that our judges are really interested in what you're doing. So tell us really clearly what you're doing, why what you're doing is important, the impact it's having, any numbers you can tell us about the size and the scope and the quality and the quantity of impact that you're having. That's what we want to hear. That's what will win, is a well-told, very clear story about what it is, what it is that you are doing. So Krupali, if you've got problems with comms with us, just contact us by email and we'll help you find stuff through that if we can. I could say something about Twitter I can't answer now about whether that's possible. So thanks for joining us. This is recorded. 100%, 1000%, please share this knowledge and information that you've picked up today with anybody you think is doing good. We want to encourage as much tech for good as we possibly can across the planet. So you guys turning up here have shown the interest in the connections. So you must have others that will be interested as well. Please share out and make sure we get the most amazing stories into the Tech for Good Awards this year, including yours. Let us know if we can help you with your work, and please do pass on the message to others that could be inspiring examples of Tech for Good. We'll do our best to support you. Esperanza, you need to slide off of this thing and connect with us by email if you can, because we can only do this on Zoom. So if you want to connect with us directly, please do that through email if you're going to be sending us documents. We're happy to have a look at it. We won't do a huge amount because there's limits to the amount we can do, but we're happy to review documents. Great, thanks everyone for joining us. Please do let us know afterwards if you've got any questions, and I look forward to seeing your amazing entries sometime in the next, whatever it is, 3 weeks time, 4 weeks time. So thanks for coming.